Hey there, everyone. Sorry about the lateness of my day. It seems we're having a little bit of internet issue here. So thank you for coming. A little bit late. I'm Swanda, and I help spiritual seekers take control of their lives through my mastery metaphysics method. And what that means is that we are all on spiritual overload, and sometimes we need somebody to talk us down or talk us through it. And that's my job. So thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about spiritual codependency. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them as best as I can, probably better than most. So we all know what spiritual codependency is, or do we? We look a lot at what emotional codependency looks like when we depend on somebody to make us feel better about who we are. And we know what physical codependency is. It's when we're addicted to something outside ourselves to make ourselves feel better. Now, sometimes the emotional and the physical are crossovers of the same thing. However, spiritual codependency is a little different, and we're going to get into that when we start realizing the difference between the emotional codependency, because that's where most people get stuck. So we're going to talk about that aspect first. When somebody comes into our world and they tell us, gee, I can make your world so much better. And the way I can make it so much better is I'm going to give you all the attention you need. I'm going to go to work and I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to make you feel safe. Well, that is a beautiful concept, but nobody can really make us feel safe, okay? So the emotional codependency kind of comes in when we're relying on somebody who we think of as family or as our partner to make our lives better. And that codependency can get really dangerous because one person will continue growing and the other person may not. And that creates that division and that break in that relationship. Same is true when you're with somebody who's addicted to drugs or alcohol, sex, food. They're putting that primarily as their first need, their method of their madness, the first thing they seek to make themselves feel better. But when you first meet them, you are everything to them because they will love bomb you like nobody else's business. They will shower you with flowers and with attention and with all these really powerful statements of I love you proclamations within the first 3 to 6 months. Well, that's really great, but that's not healthy for our relationships because we're just kind of starting to act ourselves and be normal, who we normally are after 6 months, and so are they. So those first 6 months, we tend to jump into the relationships and we go, wow, this is it. This is amazing. This person is the one. Oh my God, I found my gold mine. And after a while, when you find out, no, they don't want to go to the gym with you every time, but they used to. But now they want to go see their friends or they want to go home and read a book instead of going to the gym at your gym time. And they want to go back to their regular gym time. So we become so dependent on that person so that when they choose to not do what they're doing, it makes us feel less than. It makes us feel neglected or unloved. So remember that when an alcoholic first takes this drink, now I will qualify this statement. I'm not an alcoholic, but I have family that are alcoholics, and this is what they told me was basically the way they felt about it. Okay? So the first time an alcoholic gets a drink or gets drunk, gets that high, they start chasing that high because for the first time in their life, they feel normal. The anxiety, the depression, the self-worth or lack of self-worth goes out the door, and they feel empowered and they feel invigorated. And it's the same thing like with cocaine or meth or any of the other drugs of choice. Sex is the same way. I have power. I have, if somebody sees me, I can be vulnerable to them, and I'm empowered by that. And the hard thing about that is that that's a momentary fix, and they keep chasing that initial high. Now, that's, like I said, the way I understand it, I don't have an addiction problem. I did have an addiction problem to the addict. Yeah, that was kind of my thing. So when we're busy in our so competitive world, making our goals matter, and everything else out the door, relationships are primarily one of the top 3 goals: family, relationships, money. That's what people want to know. They figure friends are a dime a dozen, unless, of course, you've got an addict who also has an addict friend, and then that friend is more important, but that's a story for another day. The codependent in this situation wants to help the addict. That's their driving need. They sense the deep inside brokenness, and they want to fix it for them. And they will do anything that they can to make sure that they can fix it. They will jump and go get the bills paid. They'll clean the house. They'll do the laundry. They'll do everything within their realm of possibilities to prove themselves worthy to the person who's an addict, because the addict is like, I want to get drunk and I don't want you around, so I'm going to tell you what a loser you are, whatever they do. There's all kinds of manipulative methods to this. So I've been listening to a lot of people, and they're calling the codependent person an empath. And I'm going to not, if that's your belief, I'm going to let you have it, but I want you to think of it a little bit differently. Because what they're doing when they call the person who's codependent an empath is they're glorifying this desire to heal the addict as if it was a spiritual gift. And it's not. It's not a spiritual gift to bring healing as a codependent, okay? The spiritual gift is recognizing that you have value, that you are worthy, and you don't need to heal anyone but yourself, okay? The codependent may be empathetic, meaning that they can sense the pain and suffering in another person. They can put themselves in that situation. Gosh, if I got fired from my job, I'd feel terrible. So they'll go out and they will make that happen for them. They will go out and make those worlds work for them. And when they do this, they'll blow it up just as good as they can blow it up to become that really special person in that person's life. It doesn't work that way. Knowing that you understand how somebody feels when bad things happen to them is more about being empathetic. And you can even have sympathy, but I will tell you that sympathy is found between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. That's what I was told. Doesn't do people a lot of good, and that's very true. A true empath actually physically, mentally, and emotionally feels the anguish or the pain or the suffering. Like if somebody has a headache, the empath will get a headache and then have to figure out, is this me or is it someone in the room? If they feel the desire for drinking, it is them. They may not normally drink, but they can feel that like a craving. I gotta drink. I can tell you that after my mother, my son's father, and my cousin passed away, they were all 3 alcoholics. And I don't drink. So I had this insatiable craving for alcohol. And it took me a while to figure out, oh my God, this isn't me. This is them popping in. I'm picking up the energies of that need to drink. And so that's what happens to empaths. They will physically feel it. Now, I will tell you, sometimes with an empath, they can't always, they'll say, oh, does somebody have a headache? And everybody's like, no, I don't have one. Then they're picking up their own headache. That's just the way it is. We oftentimes get headaches. But if nobody in the room is owning that headache, you can't just project that, hey, I'm an empath, so I need to know if everybody's got a headache because now I've got one. A true empath really feels it in mind, body, and spirit. And sometimes they have to walk away to isolate, to release it. Sometimes the pain is so much they really have to work at shaking it off. And oftentimes you'll see an empath, they're closet introverts. Okay, they can be an extrovert when needed, but they will go in and they don't want to go to the mall during Christmas. It's exhausting for them. So, that's the mark of it. An empath is somebody who picks up everybody else's emotions or their physical feelings or their physical cravings or their anguish, whatever, even their joys. And having joy and anguish and worry and fear and happiness and love all hit you at once, it can be overwhelming. So anyway, with that, I can tell you that with proper training in empath, it's a very, very powerful gift. Why am I risking telling you this? Because many people are out there going, I'm an empath. It's because excusing abusive behavior as a codependent by calling it a spiritual gift is very dangerous to the person. It's very dangerous. It can keep them locked into an abusive relationship because they're an empath and they feel that person's feelings, so they know how they feel. So they create this, I've got to make them feel better. And sometimes that can lead to mental, emotional, and physical abuse. So, I'm really, really trying to help people here by telling them, don't call yourself an empath. Know the difference between empath and codependent. And TikTok is full of people who are saying you're an empath. Please don't let them do that to you. It's just not worth it. Now, to understand spiritual codependency, we now have talked about codependency. To put it simply, codependency is the joining of two people where dysfunction in that relationship serves the ego of both parties. So while shredding each other of the ability to heal. So in other words, codependency requires two. And oftentimes in those situations, you have the rescuer, the perpetrator, and the victim. Okay, so when you get that two-person thing going on, sometimes people will trade roles. One person will become the victim and the other person becomes the codependent. The other person, or the codependent, is also the victim. The person who's the victim will turn around, become the savior. The savior becomes the abuser. And it's just this three-legged triangle race to hell. So the only way I can put it. So spiritual codependency, you can look at it as when two or more people get behind a belief or many beliefs to justify or exert control over others or to make themselves justified and feel better. So religion does this. It's called dogma. And many people have been beating each other up lately over their spiritual beliefs. And I have to ask you, why would we do that? What is the actual point of doing that? Well, the actual point of doing it is so that we retain control. We can keep people suppressed and we can keep people feeling bad about themselves and in fear. And the only point fear is to have control so that we keep you from, if you feel fear, if you're codependent, you feel worthless, then guess what happens? Somebody else gets to tell you what to do. And that means that they take away your rights as a human being, as a spiritual, magnificent, beautiful, spiritual human being. And your beingness is being challenged right now. We do it in politics. Then there's, people are choosing to mock people for their beliefs over everything. All I can tell you is you have to learn to trust yourself, your own intuition, your own power, your own beingness. And when you trust yourself, then the rest of it goes along with it. Everything just ceases to be dramatic, and you can move into that flow of being. That's what's important. And we're seeing this division because it's all about control, suppression, repression, abuse. This is not a spiritual way to live. Spiritual codependency, used in a good way, means that you buoy each other up. You help each other bring forth the positive aspects of our lives. The flow of abundance, we release all the negation, sickness, illness, disease, curses, malfunctions, and dysfunctions within our relationship, becoming accountable for our own actions. Then we draw in that person who's vibrating at the same rate that we are. So with that being said, we don't have to worry about using our critical mind and critical thinking skills to see how illogical rules are that other people are making in their spiritual codependency. We know that we've taken that out of our own. So it's really important that we start vibing to the correct energy for ourselves and not have this, you have to do it my way. Because let me put it this way. If I can get you to believe exactly what I think, and what I'm thinking is children don't have rights, women don't have rights, people of color don't have rights. If I can get you to that belief, then that makes me right. And that's wrong, because this truly spiritual person is not going to try to coerce you into making judgments or calling people less than or devaluing them because of their culture or their color of their skin or their gender or their age. I remember being told when I was a kid, well, shut up, you don't know anything because you're just a kid. Well, I didn't realize I was really intelligent because I used to read current affairs and I did have good opinions and I thought differently, and I never spoke because I was told, you're a kid. I came from that generation, from the silent generation of parents that said, shut up, you don't know. And what happened is I was defiant, which was yay me, because I found my spiritual path my way. I didn't stick around in the Baptist church, and I certainly didn't stick around in the Catholic church, so I was free to go. This is what I mean by looking at spiritual codependency as an opportunity. The other thing that we have to recognize in our spiritual path is many people are indoctrinated as children. They are told what to believe, like Jesus will save you. He died on the cross for you. He's going to save you. Allah forgives you. Angels are pretty. And so they're so pretty, we exploit the angels to make us money and to make us feel safe and to tell the children, oh, the angels kissed you, that's why you have freckles. Or the angels are going to bring you pennies from heaven if you're a good little boy or girl. Kind of like the tooth fairy. Angels are really doing all this stuff, but they're not. If they're not, they're there to help raise our consciousness. They're not there to give us salvation. And the more we think this way, the more we stay in that third dimensional thinking, and the less we become accountable for our spiritual growth. And the more we fall victim to judgment and anger and drama and hate toward other people, and the more we try to take control of it. So, we do have the ability to use spiritual codependency to understand our own brokenness. Okay. Now, that's really what the gift of spiritual codependency can look like. You are vibrating at a certain rate. You have a concept. Okay. I'm supposed to be married. I'm supposed to have children. Man is supposed to work outside. Woman works in the house. We get together with the families on holidays. All the little white picket fence stories that we have told ourselves and told our children, this is what they're to expect. So when it came to churches, we didn't have to be accountable for our actions. They tried, okay? So you have the Catholic Church that makes you go to confession, for example, and you're supposed to be accountable. Well, how many times do you do the same thing over and over? Oh, well, you were supposed to go and make amends. Well, you go and how many times do you have to say, I'm sorry I said a foul word in class today, because I'm going to say it tomorrow and I said it yesterday. So I'm going to go to the church and I'm going to get absolved of my sins for cussing in class. But that's not really making me accountable for it. But if we understood that using foul language lowers our vibration and it would stop us from getting a good job. Now that might be a horse of a different color, bird of a different feather, right? I'll give you an example. My son, God, I loved him. He would get so nervous going into a job interview, that he would invariably drop the F-bomb. Invariably. And he wasn't getting hired. And he was getting angrier and angrier and more desperate and more desperate. And the more desperate it came, the more anxiety was built up. The more anxiety that was built up, the more he dropped the F-bomb. It was just this little circle. And finally, this one company, the woman says, I know he's got a potty mouth, but I think he's really a hard worker. I want to give him a chance. And he rocked it in that company so much so that he actually was promoted to a manager of his own store within a year. So yeah, there is the element that when you get lucky, you get lucky. But the whole point is he could have had a job probably a year earlier than he did if he hadn't been using the F-bomb. These things are what we're talking about when we're saying, lowering your vibration, bringing fear to your life. If you're not good, you're not going to get paid your bonus. If you don't do this the right way, you're not going to get that. We use fear tactics that were created to keep us in check in churches and in religion for our spiritual growth. We use them to indoctrinate our children to behave better at school, to behave better at home, to our spouses. You better not do this, you better not do that, because there's always an ultimatum. And you know what? Nobody likes ultimatums. You don't like them. I don't like them. Somebody gives me an ultimatum, I'm almost tempted. I really weigh the consequences of that. And so what I generally do now is I go, wait a minute, you just gave me an ultimatum. I don't vibe with that. So I'm out. See you later. I'm done. I'm not going to let you give me an ultimatum because you're trying to make me responsible for something that you want me to do. And I don't know that doing it is going to make one bit of difference to me. It's not going to make me happy. It's not going to make me sad. But if you'd like for me to do something, don't give me the ultimatum. Just ask me. Talk to me. I am an intelligent human being. And if I see that it is a perfectly reasonable request, then absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I mean by having the right spiritual codependency going on. You don't need that person who is ignoring you because they're always on social media. Oh my gosh, to me, that's frustrating. And here, I know I'm on social media, so, but it's not my life. I have a complete center here, and I teach classes, I write, I'm editing one book and starting another book. I engage my life in a way that I talk to people, and I'm more than just social media. But his problem is that from the minute he got up till the minute he went to bed, that's all he did. If work interrupted him from being on social media, he was irritated. It was like, thank God he owned his own company, because he would have gotten fired anywhere else. But after a while, I realized that what he was showing me was a situation from my childhood in which I, as the child, was not in a situation where I was in any part of the equation. So leaving that relationship, I thanked him profusely. We were together for 10 years. It wasn't always like that. But I thanked him profusely, and I still do, because he gave me the ability to see where I was broken. So you go in, you heal that, you become vulnerable, you become open to abundance, or whatever it is that you need to do to start gaining that energy to start drawing forth the person you really want. Now, if you're sitting there saying, well, my ex did this, or my ex did that, or this is so bad here, you can't control that. Okay, so being with that person, if that's the spiritual codependency that you want, where you both complain about your ex, yay, you did good. You picked right. But if it's in any way, shape, or form different than what you would like it to be, then you have to start creating that openness and let go of fear, and not have that need for somebody to step in and fix anything for you. I heard it said the other day, if you can't be by yourself, you have to ask yourself why. If you're not happy having quiet time by yourself, what's wrong with you? If you have to have somebody pay your bills, what are you doing it for? What are you getting out of it? There's a feed, it's a buy-in, it's an emotional buy-in. Same with your spiritual awareness. If you have to have somebody who meditates when you meditate, and you have to do it together, then you're not on the same wavelength if they're comfortable meditating separately. Meditation's personal. It can be done in a group. I personally like to be alone so that I can let go, but I do have a group of people that I feel comfortable meditating with, and I'm good with that too. But we need to allow ourselves, through spiritual codependency, to see where we're broken, raise our consciousness, and move on. Move into a new frequency. And hopefully that person, when you heal you, they'll be healing too. And that's kind of what I did one time when I had that 10-year relationship. I remember doing my annual Halloween review. And in that review, I was asking for someone whom I could bring healing to, and who could bring healing to me, and that we'd be happy together. And guess what? That was October 31st, and January, middle of January, bang, this guy from my past shows up, and we started talking, and 10 years later, we were having this great relationship when it was time for me to move on. Or I think it was great for him. Maybe it wasn't so much for me, because I had moved on. And I had actually moved on probably 3 years beforehand, but he had taught me so much that it was great. I got healing. I don't know if he did. It's not mine to judge. But hopefully he got something out of the relationship too, because, that's what we're here for. We are drawing people to us to create and bring forth everything we need to heal. And that's in every aspect of our life. And so if we want to get better, we need to say, hey, my life is getting better. I'm raising my vibration. I want to be with people who are not victimizing themselves to circumstances or to you. You don't want that person who victimizes themselves to you. Why would you want that? What good does that do? I haven't figured that one out yet. So remember that when our vibration is low, we bring forth someone who is angry and violent. we can bring forth a low vibrating person. I did that too. But to understand this, we have to really understand that part and accept that we accepted them into our lives. We also can raise our vibration and our consciousness to get rid of them. We don't have to stay with them. We can move up into the light. Some of you may be saying, it's just not that easy. I'm telling you, it is. I've been there and I've done it, and it is. It's your fear that makes it difficult. It's your excuses that make it difficult. When I went through it, I was scared to leave. I was scared to leave my house. When we finally did break up, I was afraid to go to the store. I was afraid to go to work because he had kind of gotten really out of control, angry, and I didn't know he was stalking me. I didn't know what was going to happen. And that's not the relationship I asked for in my Halloween review, but it was one I was vibing to when I was 32. And the one that I had brought toward me 10 years ago, well, that relationship allowed me to be vulnerable, to feel loved, and to be safe. But when his addictions took over, it was my childhood all over again. And I was like, I get it. I recognize where I'm broken. Well, when I stepped away, my spirit started to soar. And he showed me the last bit of healing and where I needed it. And that's when it was okay to leave. I could have stayed, but then we both would have sunk into the physical and emotional codependency. It wouldn't have been a healthy situation. And my spiritual codependency with him no longer needed to be fed. So we can raise our consciousness and change the way we view our life. That's why I became a spiritual mentor. I've been teaching metaphysics and how this all works for a long time. And like I said in the beginning, we bring forth those people that we really feel are our ways of looking at how we want our life. So here's what I want you to do. If you want to get out of spiritual codependency, I want you to start every morning. I want you to wake up. I want you to think about how beautiful the healing light is all around you. I want you to breathe it in and exhale. I want you to bring yourself into center. And then I want you to imagine what it's like to live this magnificent life of love and abundance. And just feel it. And I want you to, every time you catch yourself thinking that you want to go back with an ex, or you think this guy's really cool because he's dressed all macho, or this chick is really hot and you want her, I want you to go back and remember what you're trying to create is a spiritual relationship, not a physical and not an emotional one, because your brokenness will show up if you keep trying to create a physical or an emotional relationship. In the spiritual relationship, it will show up, but it will be much more gentle and you will see it better and you can heal it much easier. Let go of the fear of being alone. Let go of the desire for control. Let go of desire to be needed and wanted. Let go and trust. And know that you unconditionally love and trust yourself within. Knowing that you are a powerhouse for your own spiritual unfoldment. Knowing that you have control over that. That's what it's going to take. So from my heart to yours, I hope this helps. I hope you enjoy your weekend. And I'll be back on Monday. I'm going to be doing a kind of a coffee clutch. I don't know if any of y'all know what that is. It's kind of a term we use out here in the West and the South. But a coffee clutch is kind of two people getting together and they have a good natter over what's happening in the world. And we're going to be talking about the winter solstice rituals and the things that are going to come forth. And it's going to be myself and my gal pal, Rosemary Navarra. She is going to be joining me at 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So like and subscribe. So you'll be sure to catch the notification of that YouTube Live. And I hope to see you soon. If you have any questions, I'll check back, and please put them in the comment section and I'll check back. Until then, my heart tears. Bye. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye now.